This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. With regard to your participation in the show, we encourage you to call in on the numbers listed 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Here's a suggestion. You have a question or comment, perhaps you can get a pencil, piece of paper, write it down so that you're well organized, and we're getting on the show. You take as little time as possible so we can accommodate as many of you as we can. We ask only, first of all, you respect yourselves and then respect others, because we will not accept anything we deem that's not within our broadcast standards, but we encourage you to always be forceful with your point. Thank you all again. You can follow our video stream of this program on our Facebook page at Von Radio and our YouTube channel at Von Radio. Tonight, Conrad Nair Liebert, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo, and good evening to my colleague, Mr. Stanley, to everyone tuned to this program by the various means today. I say a pleasant good evening. I hail my friends in particular in Connecticut and in Toronto. I welcome you to the program. Webbo, once again, we gathered to discuss the very issues affecting the people home and abroad. Locally, regionally, and sometimes internationally, and as you know, is a conversation I always enjoy, and so I am actually encouraging the listening public to participate tonight. We are edging closer and closer to the 40th anniversary of our independence celebration, so I suppose there's a lot to be shared and of course a lot to talk about. Webbo, I want to thank you once again for having me, and I look forward to a healthy discussion this evening, Webbo.
Edric W. Stanley, good evening.
Good evening, Webbo. Good evening to my fellow panelists. Good evening to the people of St. Kitts, and more particularly the gracious people of Nevis. Those who listen to us on the World Wide Web and throughout the Caribbean Basin, and through Facebook and YouTube, as the case might be. It is good to be here, and I'm delighted to know that the Queen Pageant for the 40th anniversary and the two pageants, we are included based on the announcement bringing the name St. Kitts Nevis Pageant, hashtag St. Kitts Nevis Queen Contestant, and as a result, I do not know how this sits with those people who mentioned last week that we are not included in some ways in the national affairs, but I strongly urge us to focus on nation building. The hashtag St. Kitts Nevis Pageant and the inclusion, meaning this is not an afterthought. So those people who said we have no participation in the national flag, national anthem, as the case might be, I am asking them to go back and listen, and also to change their mindset with reference to what was said, and going forward in terms of participation, where do they stand in terms of their thinking currently? I am urging, pleading, begging those who are continuing to push forward a divided nation. In my view, it's a divided aspect of the utterances. At the same time, you find alliances are being formed all over the world. Right now, Kim Jong-un supposedly is in Russia, forming an alliance with Vladimir Putin. And we know that the African countries, the global south, so it is hashtagged, they have met, and as a result, alliances being formed, and based on such alliances, it seems as though there is inclusion. So why are we attempting to continue to push this idea of exclusion? Like I said last week, I do not know exactly how the history books are going to record our going forward. But at the same time, I urge our countrymen and women, all our citizens, to look at the way forward toward nation building and make our contribution in that regard. Fortunately, the St. Kitts Nevis Patriot worked out a win in this current season, and I hope that they would build upon that regarding our cricket. And the name St. Kitts Nevis Patriot means a lot to us as a nation, simply because the name has been mentioned, and it speaks volumes. So now that we have eked out victory, again, I hope that we will build upon that. Webbo.
Mr. Stanley, interesting. Of course, but alliances would always be formed. You know, CARICOM in itself is a regional alliance. Even within the OECS, there's of course some sort of alliances. And between St. Kitts Nevis there can be alliances. If we cannot get along politically, and if we are not feeling that we are treated as equal partners in the federation, we can have an alliance too. So alliances would be formed, you know, to protect and advance the interests of the participating countries or islands, and so we can have an alliance, and we can also have some degree of friendship if we cannot politically get along. And if the Nevisian public continue to experience the difficulties that we've been experiencing from the inception, let's go back from 1983. We can go back to 1960s, but let's talk, you know, from the 40 years of independence. We can, of course, you know, pledge to get along. If we decide, we as Nevisians decide to go away. I mean, the begging and pleading you're doing, Mr. Stanley, it seems to me you're begging and pleading Nevis people to participate, to override their emotions, to go beyond what is deep within them, to accept an inferior standing within the federation and function normally. That is impossible. And we have a problem. And I think the longer we keep quiet about it, the longer we Nevisians keep quiet about it, the longer the problem will go on and on. The Honorable Minister was here last week, and I had to squeeze him a little bit for him to really speak on what I consider to be that space that exists, whatever it is. You can say an impasse that exists. Why Nevisians never feel too enthusiastic about the independence celebration. But this year I can see a stronger effort from the federal government, a stronger effort coming over from St. Kitts. mostly in the form of more flags. I don't know, it looks like they have sent a lot of flags over this year, which is good. Hawkins Drive, seems to be well decorated. But flags doesn't mean anything, because even though all these flags are here, I am still not feeling and hearing the talk about independence celebration in town or anywhere, from the people of Nevis. I'm happy to talk to you, Mr. Stanley, because you're the only person who seems to be excited about it. But there are others, but obviously I have not spoken to them. But I talk to a lot of people, those who feel like they are at the top of the society, and those who feel like they're not also. But there exists a problem. There exists something which to me is called in secrecy. There exists something that Nevis people is waiting to hear more of, that the present day politicians are not talking about, both parties, NRP and CCM. And it looks like we are basically spinning in thin air, but basically going nowhere, because one cannot forecast. Well, let me take back that in a sense, because one can attempt to forecast with some certainty whether or not it becomes reality. But it looks to me like the present day politicians must speak of this issue more often. I know they probably find themselves in a situation where to speak of an independent Nevis is risky, because relationship with the federal government might become a little strained, and we have to, because some have run Nevis into the woods, have to depend on them so heavily on a monthly basis. But there is an issue that exists within the federation, which is Nevis people always, you can include us in the celebration. What we want to feel like we are treated fairly in the federation. I think that is fundamental, which is every day, throughout the life of a government, not just one day in a year or at a particular anniversary, like we're having the 40th anniversary this time around. Now, yes, the Independent Queen show, I remember the very first one. In fact, I participated in the show. I played Congo drums for the participant from Nevis, and I believe she became the queen. What's her name? She was originally out of Rollins, and she participated, and I think she placed. I think she became queen, and I'm happy for that. And I'm also happy that they're having one this year. I'm not sure if they had one last year, but that is something we should have. But that is, to me, besides the worrying factor. And we need to get, because it's not we alone have this concern, The concern exists through the federation. Just recently I listened to a discussion about the Constitution by some of the elite minds of within, I think it's in Nevis, and some things were said about the 113 clause. This is very interesting. One thing I learned from that, well, I didn't learn this, I knew this, that the clause is a very entrenched clause in the federation, in the Constitution, and for it to be removed, 2/3 of the people of Sinkits must vote, and 2/3, and in Nevis 2/3 also, so there must be two different referendum in the federation. I personally feel they can achieve that in Sinkits, because Sinkits want the 113 clause out of the Constitution. Over here in Nevis, I cannot bet on that, because they know how to manipulate the minds of, because they feed them, they spoon feed them, and so they know to manipulate the minds of the politicians. The politicians know to manipulate the minds of their followers here in Nevis, and I pray that that doesn't come a reality where Nevis people could go and vote 2/3 to take it out. But there is that issue, because they feel like the federation has a crack in it. and the crack is the 113 clause. One individual who was there proposed that they should give Nevis a deadline, in a sense, basically saying that, let us say, for instance, give them 10 years to activate the clause, and if they don't, then they, make moves to remove it. And so it is an issue, and it's an issue that Nevisians must be very conscious about. And I think every independent celebration, it doesn't bring that good feeling to Nevisians, but a feeling to me of great, a sympathy for oneself, having to find ourselves in this position for so long, and doesn't matter what, doesn't matter which government, and at times doesn't matter what the approach is, it still work out that the Nevisians get the bad end of the stick in this arrangement. And so we got to look at this very seriously, we Nevisians, even more seriously than Kittitians, because, as I say, they would like it out of the Constitution. And over here, it is such a thing here in terms of political influence. We are so now dependent on Sinkits that I suppose they can manipulate the situation out here, where they probably can get the 2/3 they want to get the 113 clause up, but that would cause big problem in Nevis. And what would happen will be our own private business, because I don't think we would settle for that in no way at all. And those who have decided to work with them, we will be see them as traitors and treason to this cause. There is no life to me in Nevis, in terms of destiny, without the 113 clause there, and not just there for decoration and to use up space, but it is there as a symbol of hope to be acted upon when we find it right and concise to do so. It's something we cannot, and I feel like, and I must say this, and some gonna want to beat me up for this, but I feel like the modern day politicians have derailed the people of Nevis, because we have already proved overwhelmingly that the majority of people really wants to see that dawn of that new day for Nevis. But the present day politicians, both sides, for some reason, they want to take Nevis somewhere, and I'm not sure where, but Nevis people are not politically happy in terms of where we stand federally, and that is always my point of view. That is my conviction, and so that problem must be solved. That problem must be solved. It must be resolved. And I think the resolution of that problem lies with the people of Nevis. Otherwise, I do not see much things happening. I mean, where's our flag? A lot of flags come, and Honkins Drive is covered with flags. One to the yellow flags. I move around recently. One place I see that yellow flag. That's up at is that a museum next to the Governor House? That's the only place that yellow flag, and it looks very washed out. But that yellow flag is symbolic to our struggle. It should be rest side by side by the so-called federal flag that they impose on us. But our symbol, and what is symbolic to us, is that yellow flag, and that flag is what offers hope to Nevis. It is the first gesture towards our own, destiny, and to me it means a lot. I'm sorry that I'm a little emotional here. It means an awful lot, and for the local politicians, then, either whether or not they are afraid to insist that that flag be flown, or whatever, they have basically turned their back on the aspirations of Nevis people, and we got to sort that out, because if you check it out, the desire still exists, because the treatment still exists. Mr. Stanley.
Well, you brought up about the Hawkins Drive. I do not know if you're aware that the police station has been temporarily relocated to the Hawkins Drive,
Yeah.
and as a result, there are it is very symbolic to have many national flags wrapped around the light poles, as the case might be. On the other street by the church, the Anglican church, and on the Hawkins Drive, simply because the police station, current police station,
Yes.
is
Temporary.
due to be renovated, and as a result, the flag, which represents nationhood, the federal government, which is the leader within the security apparatus, the police station is a symbol of security, and federally they have put emphasis on that location regarding the federal flag. So I do not know if they're going to inundate that area with more flags. You are pushing for the yellow flag to be alongside the national flag,
Yes.
which could be a good symbol, but at the same time, it might be a divisive display, whereas the leaders are attempting to bring some unification, some amalgamation, some, however we want to put it, to the Nevis and Sinkit's relationship at this particular juncture in our overall development and history. So in that regard, I, on the one hand, would like to see the Nevisian flag put there, but we must, in our mind, not to entertain the thought that it is there for our aspiration in the sense of the word,
So what would it be there for?
simply because it has been promulgated, it has been created, and as a result, it must not be abandoned. But the thought of divisiveness in some people's mind with reference to the yellow flag, we have to erase that facet within the minds of Nevisians so that we all can engage in nation building, unity, and a shared destiny. Remember our motto, our national motto.
Made by who?
Is it Kenrick George's?
Okay.
So based on my promoting unity, nation building, camaraderie, the whole 9 yards of keeping the nation together for prosperity, longevity, we can go into the 22nd century and
Still suffering the same way like we've been suffering for another 40 years. We have been. I mean, when do you really expect this to stop now? Our good friend Theodore Hobson always said the last gesture that we made in forming the unity, that's the very last chance. He always used to tell me that. You know, it's the last chance. where do we go from here? We got to get ourselves together over here, Mr. Stanley. And this idea of erasing things from the mind of Nevisian, you know what you're talking about when you say that? You know that sound? How you can erase things from people's mind when there is so much reason.
Don't take it negatively.
To for people's mind to be conditioned in that way.
Don't take it negatively, because unity is strength.
Oh yes.
It has been clearly demonstrated over many centuries.
Oh yes, unity is true.
And we know we existed with St. Kitts, and we know that we have not done too badly existing with St. Kitts in the...
Oh, we have done very bad.
In the unity.
We've done very bad.
The unification, the amalgamation, the togetherness, and everything that goes along with that. And I'm saying right now, if we focus on nation building, which requires all hands on deck, total cooperation without rancor, it is a win-win situation for both entities, St. Kitts and Nevis. And I'm applauding, I'm begging, asking, beseeching for us to understand the ramifications of fragmentation. We must weigh those harsh realities or perceived realities. We must really weigh, analyze, and harmonize the unification of St. Kitts Nevis. You talked about clause 113, and St. Kitts should propose that they give us 10 years.
No. I didn't say that.
Well,
from a discussion, one of the panelists.
Well, I'm just saying.
Did speak to that.
It doesn't happen. It won't happen that way. It won't happen that way, because for a proposal like that to gather legs or speed, it has to be agreed upon by both St. Kitts and Nevis.
Yes, sir.
But there are certain things when it comes to international order, international law, that must be contemplated, must be anticipated. Boundary.
Yeah, of course.
Meaning, territorial boundaries. And if we are to weigh the harsh reality that if the current rancor, which some people are attempting to propose, continues, if that happens, when the harsh reality sets in, where Nevis's territorial waters begin and stop at the threshold as to where the waves break, you will never be happy with that.
That's always funny. So if we, through our constitution, activating the 113 clause, and we become separated from St. Kitts, we right where the water, the wave break is that will be the limitation for Nevisians. Oh, that's a frightening ignorance. It is absolutely folly.
You call it frightening, but then you added ignorance.
Yes.
But again, Nevis would be guided, must adhere to international law.
Yes.
And with regard to
what international law gonna for a country that have seceded, have decided to go on their own, What international going to insist that we don't have not even 2 inch of water beyond our...
I have not studied international law
Well, you
to the
need
extent
to.
where that harsh reality
That is no reality.
would be imposed upon us
They can,
based on the interpretation of the Constitution and
which constitution?
our Constitution,
It
based
wouldn't be
on
our
how,
constitution anymore. The constitution wouldn't apply to us anymore.
based on what has been proposed or what will be proposed, that is a very likelihood, but it is frightening because I personally
Well,
would
you're
not
trying
like.
to frighten people. It's these kind of things. Look,
I am
a
not.
good leader advance the aspiration of its people. The positive aspiration, a good leader, you know, and I think that is what is a problem about the situation of Nevis, in a sense, to be quite honest. And somehow we have found ourselves in a position where the economics are the more frightening thing than things like what you're talking about, border, you know, and it is within our responsibility to get ourselves, get our economy, get our country, bring back pride to our people. It all have to come that way. You know, it's not like being ignorant about it. But if the people are still, and they are, I can tell you that, still having that, because even last week, the Honorable Minister said Nevisians dream of having their own flag.
The flag is only one aspect of it, but you talk about the economics.
Of having your own flag, you know.
You talk about economics. Let me tell you something.
Well.
Nevisians
dream
will
of-
always
listen to me.
produce, and from the production of Nevisians, we will always go upward and onward. It may not be at the same pace.
The problem we have is that Sinkis is sucking us. Yes. How much money is Nevisians spending Sinkis daily? Have you ever got on that?
I have never quantified it, but at the same
Well, try
time,
and think
the
about
figures
it.
are there.
Huh?
There's no question
figures
about
are
it.
there.
The figures are there.
The figures are there.
But at the same time, do you see anybody in Nevis going hungry?
No.
You see anybody going in Nevis
But I'm talking about strengthening our economy
without clothing, shelter?
No, what I'm talking about, right? If
The economics
if
for
less
Nevisians-
money is leaked to Sinkits, could we shop in Sinkits? We do everything in Sinkits. They have provided the situation. Now our airport, I don't know what's going on with that. We once had it, we don't have it now. People arrive by boats. Be careful with Nevis. Be careful that we are not getting smaller. Be careful that we are not giving up the very important things that make us fulfilled and wholesome because it exists in Sinkits. This is simply what I'm talking about. You know,
There is something about the
Careful,
airport
we-
currently on the drawing board
no.
from the Nevis Island administration.
No,
I can't tell you what the harsh reality will be.
But I'm not dwelling on that. I'm simply saying, with the attitude you have, Mr. Stanley, and it's been said before by a popular politician, success in Sinkits means success in Nevis. I just cannot understand that. It is not true, you know. But what I'm trying to say,
Are you failing? You're trying to promulgate an argument that
no,
we are failing.
I say success in Sinkits doesn't mean success in Nevis. That's what I'm saying.
Nevisians have always been an independent, thinking, operating, and producing people, and we will always produce for our
Okay, so what does it take
sustainability.
then? So what does it take then? What does it take? Why?
It
is
takes unity.
We are so dissatisfied.
It
Why is it we are so dissatisfied?
it might be a figment of the imagination simply because people like you and others attempt to keep the fire burning, keep that dream alive, which, in my view, is very divisive, is very
But
destructive.
we have reasons too. We are just in a new government. Look what happened to the government that's gone before. I mean, so what happened? So you
Has been merged.
okay. To have this unity work in the way, a perfect way, or seemingly working perfectly, we simply have to not advance our determination to be treated equally and fairly. So the idea of the fair share, we shouldn't even talk about that. That's what you're saying.
Why shouldn't we talk about it? That's the current trend. So based on what is happening now, we have to talk about it because we know money is coming into the country, and the leaders of the country should give Nevis its equitable share without having to ask for it, without having to fight for it, without any rancor.
Okay.
And as I said, there's a debate right now in Israel where the government is attempting to be unreasonable. Last week I used the statement of reasonableness. And if you are reasonable as a leader, your policies would be reasonable also. If you're unreasonable, as what is happening in Israel today, you're going to come up with unreasonable positions which a higher body would find you unreasonable and rule against you as a government, as a people. So the idea of being reasonable and fair supposed to come from within you and from within us. And as a result, we wouldn't have to go and have quarrel for a greater share. They would see what's coming in, and I would tell you, Prime Minister Joe sees what's happening,
Okay.
and he's trying to be as reasonable and as fair
Okay.
as he could under the present circumstances. And
Well, I'm very happy.
until we have arrived at a certain juncture where you got a change of government,
Good.
a change of leaders, some who want to go back to the old skullduggery and repugnant system of government, divide and rule.
I don't know what you're talking about. We're dealing with the Labour government in St. Kitts, a new brand government.
Well, I
and they've
understand
just
that.
been seated for 1 year. But it's 40 years of independence we have, So you mean the 39 years, we ain't learned nothing from the bad treatment we've been getting from all those other government. So we are now, everything has, as you say, erase them things from the mind of Nevis people. So let's erase all that and we start afresh with this new Prime Minister who seems to be
a fair-minded person.
a friendly player.
And he has tried to bring about, or he's trying to bring about, a level playing field with reference to the interest of Nevis and Nevisians.
Okay.
Give him a fair chance. And
Yeah, but the fire still burns. The fire's been burning all this time. So now
his
because
followers
we come on the
might
scene, the
want
fire is
to
going to go
follow
out. The aspiration history and the aspirations, I mean, it shouldn't be shaken by the advancement of a new government just gone in for 1 year. Well, that's the thing you guys try to do. You try to kill the aspirations of Nevis people. To suit what? To suit who? That's what you guys are doing.
look,
No one is advancing that. The 62% we get in 1998, you guys want to throw that under the table and say it never happened.
prosperity.
No, that exists. It's a matter that you guys, when I say you guys, I mean, I'm talking like people of your profile, Mr. Stanley here in Nevis, and the politician and them, must look at and saying, what are we doing? How could we erase all these truth and facts and experiences from the mind of Nevis people? And tell them,
Let me just get this. Good evening. Thank you for holding.
Good evening, Webbo. How are you doing?
Good.
And good evening to the panelists. I just happened to jump in a vehicle and I'm overhearing you guys, which I need some clarification on. One of the panelists is saying, you guys. Also, one of the panelists is saying, why is it that we are so dissatisfied? Now, I just need to verify which survey, which research report is being referenced when generalizations such as why is it we are so dissatisfied, which report is being referenced? Was there a survey done? Was any sort of data collection done to suggest that there's a certain percentage of Nevisians who are dissatisfied? And if so, what is that percentage? If you could help me out here, please.
Well, I personally never did a survey, but I live on island, and we can always make reference to the last referendum that they have. I live on island, and of course I deal with the feedbacks of the people. And no, I personally never done a survey, so no, you won't be able to get that figure from me.
Okay, so might I suggest that when we are representing our views, we just say that because I was beginning to feel as if that there was a research project done which reflects the percentage of Nevisians who are dissatisfied happened to be in the majority. So I was very, very concerned, so I just called to be educated. Thank you very much.
Well, you caller, let me say this. A referendum was held back in 1997 or 98 thereabout. And the referendum with reference to the separation of Nevis from St. Kitts failed because it did not reach the 66 and two-thirds percentile level. Consequently, that is a reference point, and I do not know if that would satisfy you.
Well, actually, that reference point is decades ago.
Right, that is correct.
Many things have changed.
Quite so.
Preferences, needs, wants, attitudes, aspirations. So really and truly referencing that and the mere fact that it did not meet the acceptance level should suggest that it's obsolete.
Well, all right, but if that is the only barometer by which we can use, which you clearly ask for a reference point.
So what is the current position? Are we just merely reporting on our opinion, or can we say currently this is what the temperature is? And I don't mean to be political, I'm genuinely asking, what is the position of Nevisians? What is the position of petitions? Because I've listened to this program sometimes and I've heard people state that for the Nevisian students who come down to St. Kitts and they're being mistreated. And that hurt me very much because sometimes I know there are individuals who travel between both St. Kitts and Nevis, and I believe we have embraced each other over the years, and there's no spiritual, no financial, no social, no big cultural separation. There might be political divide, but apart from that, I'd never heard that before, that Nevisian students coming down to CFB are being taken advantage of, and they're crying, and they're talking about it at the ferry terminals. That really scared me.
Well, people
so
are people.
I'm just clarifying if this is based on scientific data or it's just personal opinions being expressed.
Caller, I could ask you a question?
Feel free.
Under the same heading that you referred to not being political, you find that in our daily discourse we often make references and make conclusions, but do you find that we do any surveys and studies, generally speaking?
Well, I don't know how you're going to qualify general, but leading up to the election, and this is far more recent than 1997 or 1998, there were polls done.
Yeah.
I would assume, and it gave the temperature, the pulse of the country.
Yeah,
and
you see,
the country made a decision.
Right, you see those things with those polls? That is another whole debate by itself, right?
But I agree.
You agree.
We could discuss the intricacies, the shortcomings. We could say, hey, if one entity is hiring another entity and paying that entity, well, we're going to report favorably in the entity's, my employer's position.
Right.
But
so
the fact is, that is what we have.
Right. But you would also agree that if I were to give you something representing that this is, let's say, soda, but you know it is water, you are going to perhaps say, okay, thank you very much, and then you look at it differently, right?
Actually, respectfully, I disagree with that.
So work with me. So if I were to give you soda.
You mean when you say you're referring to me personally, or are you inclusive of the public?
I'm doing a hypothetical.
So you're asking me?
Yes.
Okay then.
Yes.
Of course, I once I have the empirical evidence to suggest and show that it's not a soda, I will make my conclusion.
Accordingly.
Usually, I think I would challenge your position and say, well, why are you asking me to accept that this is a soda when you know fully well it's not?
Or another option would be some other persons, for instance, I may say, well, if he thinks that I'm that stupid to believe that, then okay, I'll say, okay, thank you.
You're correct.
Okay.
You're correct.
All right.
There are going to be data points that are distributed about the normal curve. Based on our socialization, we're going to interpret things differently. Yeah?
Okay. All right. Yeah, that's what I wanted to ask.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, just to conclude that these are opinions being expressed and not based on empirical data, because I was very, very concerned.
Right.
I would not have been able to sleep tonight.
Right.
Okay, thank you much.
All right, thanks much.
There are bits of information that it may not be enormously accurate, but we can look at situations, even in the last election, when we sat here until dawn of the next morning and recognized how the counts were coming in, and eventually what the participants within our studio felt, and ultimately what the end result was, to the extent where it wound up in the High Court, simply because that barometer by which one side was measuring the results seemingly was false. Later on, the court proved that that barometer by which one side was measuring was false, and the other barometer was actually correct. So, so based on that bit of information, it is not very long ago. It was December 6th on that election. I mean December 12th on that election. And based on that, the caller can find, or maybe the caller can find, some level of acceptance within that political space.
So, I'm kind of dense. So I was following all the time. So how does that speak to the debate before?
We are focusing on the caller and asking for hard data. Which
hard data in reference to what?
The opinion expressed by us.
About what? About the last election?
No. He was asking for data based on temperature and so forth.
Right, but not specifically to the last election.
No.
Okay, but work with me. But you brought in the last election.
That is correct.
Because you wanted to say something about it.
Well, to give him at least one avenue which data has been produced.
Right, which points or prove what the discussion that you and Naya had, which he was questioning?
He was asking,
Walk with me. The question I'm asking you is, how does the example that you bring connect or clarify the discussion that you and I had? Now you're following me?
I'm following you, but Stanley asked me, so I'm kind of in between.
Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we just take a break and then we'll come back?
All right, Webbo.
This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Library. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. Be back after these.
Nevis Paradise is offering a large variety of floor and wall tiles at very competitive prices. Builders Paradise has over 2 million pieces in stock, lots of different styles to choose from. Whether you're renovating or tiling a new house, Builders Paradise has what you need. Wow! Oh, and remember, we're open all day Saturday to serve you better. This is something that you can't refuse. Visit Builders Paradise today at the C.A. Paul Southwell Industrial Site in St. Kitts or call them at 466-4938.
A 0.5-acre plot of flat land is up for sale. It is conveniently located at Hamilton Estate, Nevis. From this location, there is a spectacular view of Charlestown, Barstair, and the Westward Ocean. For more inquiries, call Mr. Edric Stanley at 869-665-5634 or 869-469-3868.
With all the power from the tower, this is the powerhouse of the Eastern Caribbean, VON Radio, from the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Conrad Nye Library and Edric W. Stanley. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. So we can almost say that we're on the eve of our independence, 40th year, 1 week away. Right? There have been some discussions and so on, and I think one of the questions that has been asked for debate and discussion is, who is a Kiddishan Nevisian? Who are we as a people? What defines us, if anything? Seemingly the debate is often overshadowed by the fact that how do the citizens feel? St. Kitts, Nevis, do we feel as a nation, etc.? So what are your thoughts on all that?
Yeah, answer your question, Webbo. I just wanted to say that the information I gave him about the 1998 or 1998 referendum, the caller categorized that as old data. For me, I am lazily focused on politics, and therefore that is why I pivoted toward the last election, bearing in mind the amount of information Naya and I spoke about different areas, the Constitution, the boundary, and the fair share. The caller called in as he listened and was asking for data, current data. If we had the data regarding the areas that we had covered in our dissertation, then we would have given it to him. But the only data I could have given was the referendum and the last election.
But how applicable was it?
Not applicable at all.
That's the question.
It is applicable.
Work with me. So it is like saying that we're going over by the St. James Raceway and we're going to race some cars, and which car is faster than the other, and a fellow comes back and says my boat is the fastest.
Webbo,
How applicable is that?
That is your take. I'm saying to you.
No, work with me. I'm saying, right, if the debate is about cars, and then a fellow brings and talk about his boat is the fastest, would you find that that is applicable to the discussion that you're having?
No.
Okay.
My thing is that, again, I am lazily focused on politics.
So you would agree then that it is not just okay to, regardless to what the topic is, to bring in a particular bit of information and fit it in.
No.
You work with me. You would agree with that?
No, Webbo, I can't agree with you. Simply because I am lazily focused on.
But let me put it this way. You therefore think that is okay or fair to, regardless of what the topic you're discussing, you can bring in any bit of information as part of the conversation.
No.
Okay.
The information has to be applicable
And relevant.
okay. And therefore the caller was asking for data, and like I said, we spoke about many things in our discussion.
You know that last statement you just made? I finally got it. So let's move on.
Okay.
Okay.
Now, you ask a question. We will ask a question.
Oh, well, how St. Kitts and Nevis people feel about being
Kiddishan and Nivision. You know,
Nivision. I don't understand the question.
yeah, see some, I want to throw something in, Naya, as you're answering. You can probably add in this as well. One of the things that I was a part of a discussion, and one of the things that you realize is that some people were arguing that going forward, we should even try and use our own cultural language. What you call it? What we call our language?
Colloquial.
Language, right?
Yes.
And to identify us as a people, etc., etc. So I asked, well, so what are we going to do? We're going to write it, and then this is what, okay, RB and stuff like that. And I said, we're going to have a problem, because sometimes when a person write RB going down there, when I look at it, I wonder, well, what is that? You know, because I might have spelled it differently. You see what I'm saying? The second thing is, ain't there also a robust debate and desire for Caribbean people, and no less St. Kitts and Nevis, who want to now go back and be connected to Africa? Is that not true?
Yes, there's a talk, yes.
Okay. So how are you going to reconcile that, where a host of people are arguing, let us make an identity as a Caribbean people, or St. Kitts, Kiddishan, Nivision, and that will come from a mixture of our lifestyle and experiences, correct? Right.
Yes.
And obviously, the lifetime and experiences of the people in Africa are different to what we have. You agree with that?
Yes.
So, are we not at a crossroads?
In my view, Webbo, when you look at the lifestyle, culture in its totality, Africa, Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, as the case might be, people are people, and you might be able to segregate aspects, minute aspects of the culture and customs of Afro-Caribbean, Afro-American, and African people. But truly, we are people. And we may not be that different. Like I said, we are minute.
But the point is, though, we are trying to make sure that we point out the difference, no?
Well, no, I mean, it's important that we point out the difference. But what I'm trying to say is that simply because we are human beings, we are descendants of African, we are not that different from the motherland of Africa. But if you were to zero in on certain minute aspects, like you brought in the writing, I'm not sure if you will find that aspect of writing or interpreting the colloquial language of St. Kitts Nevis into the African experience. So, when you look at it overall, take the whole thing in its totality, we're not very that different from African people, because we all are people.
Which then, using that argument, a similar thing can be said in reference to the Americans then.
Right.
So we're not different from the Americans either.
Listen, we have...
So we're not much different to them either.
When you take the totality...
We are much... So we are?
You think we're much different from Africa?
I'm asking.
No.
Okay, so what's the fuss all about?
Look how often it's being said that St. Kitts people is different to Nevis people. I think we all have heard that. I mean, what difference they're talking about? Really minor things, I suppose. I find the people are the same. But you ask a serious question there, Webbo. How, and the way I am trying to look at it is how Nevis people feel and how St. Kitts people feel. I think these are two different people in a sense. Nevisians like Nevis and Kittitians like St. Kitts. And there are multiple reasons why the people of Nevis should get along with the people of St. Kitts. I mean, the caller made a good point. Culturally and in various aspects of life, we share and we get along. But I think he also pinpoint politically, that's where the sourness comes in. And that's what I'm on about when I speak towards the aspirations of the
and when politically is referenced in that discussion, what does it encompass? Just the politicians or the whole political aspect, which will also include the ordinary people?
Yes, I speak towards the whole, not just politicians, and what politics can do too.
Okay.
In the indentation of the minds of the people, you know, what politics can do.
So therefore, Naya, if you're talking about the broad aspect, including the people, and then if you argue that politics involves so much of our daily operations and lives, you see what I'm hearing?
We're affected. That's the reality. We are affected in so many ways. And when we speak of aspirations, sometimes our even very personal aspirations are affected by the insecurity that we feel politically here in Nevis as it relates to the Federation. I think there is an indentation in the mind of the people as it relates to the politics of the Federation, especially of Nevis, because within a sense, to me, the political situation have set a limitation for the people of Nevis. I mean, we're not going to vote for a prime minister, and we always feel like whatever we are doing over here in terms of voting and involvement politically, it only goes to a certain extent, and that's a part of the problem. That's a part of the problem. So the problem we have politically kind of filter through the various aspects at times, and that's not good. That's not good for the Nevisian perception about the politics of the Federation and about life in general in the Federation. Because when you look at Nevis and our level of development, we can only say it's through the politics. To a great extent, it's through the politics and the inequality that comes from the politics why we are at this stage today. So when the callers say, yeah, we get along in so, but the politics still poison various aspects of our advancement here in Nevis.
Well, I'm not sure if your statement, well, of course, it is correct, because we have never had a prime minister from Nevis. But we could have had 2 prime ministers from Nevis. But we chose, based on their decision, not to take the big prize. And as a consequence, we have never had a prime minister which we voted.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. The indentation in the minds of the people of Nevis is profound because of the political history that exists between the Federation. You must ask yourself, why didn't Van Zandwich become the Prime Minister? Or why didn't Mark Brantley decide to advance, Prime Ministership for himself in the unity?
So those were the 2 you're referencing?
Well, there might be a lot more. I'm not
No, but I'm speaking to Edric, because Edric said we would have had 2. So
well, Webbo, give me a pass for not being able to bring other people to the fore in terms of becoming Prime Minister, or having the thing right there for them to accept the Prime Ministership, accept the leadership of the Prime Minister, as the case might be. But the thing knocks were here.
Yeah, but you said we had 2 occasions.
Oh.
So I'm asking you if there were those 2 that were mentioned, it was the 2 you're referring to.
That's correct.
Work with me, and then I go on and I ask if those were the only 2.
Well, I asked you to cut me some slack because I didn't want to tangle my brain.
So you can't remember if there were others?
Right.
Okay.
That is correct. But the thing knocks were here in Nevis, and the emperors run from it.
Why?
You and those 2 in entangling your brain is not selective. Just that you can't remember any other occasion.
Well, I don't want to try and
You
remember.
don't want to remember?
Yeah.
Okay.
Seems like I had a chance too. Maybe. Well, I wouldn't say he had a chance, but he was, he probably could have advanced that. But that's why I said there's an indentation that seems to give us limitation, and this is from the political inequality that goes on. And it's right here, it filters down to various aspects of our existence here in Nevis. And that is something we also got to look at. Nevis, it makes you wonder if we will ever rise, as we see sinkers have risen, and we look across the water, we can't believe that is our sister island, and look at Nevis.
What do you attribute that ineffectiveness to? The system or the persons who find themselves in the positions?
The persons who find themselves in the positions. Because
So you feel, work with me, so you feel that of the two examples that you gave, you put the blame squarely on those two individuals
that is correct.
and not on the system.
No. A.N.R. Robinson became the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago. He had the courage to demand or ask for, and he received it, the Prime Ministership of Trinidad and Tobago.
You use that example in this instance to suggest that the others who you mentioned who failed or who did not take up the opportunity, they did not have the courage.
Quite so.
Really?
Quite so. The courage is surrounded by the responsibility and the perceived aftermath of the acceptance of the position. Webbo.
You honestly feel that those two individuals that you referred to cowed out because of the magnitude of the responsibility of the task?
Webbo, we had two leaders. Those two leaders, they are different in terms of personality. But there are times when you could calculate going from one part of the river to cross, and if you, for whatever reason, perceive that you're not going to get to the other side of the riverbank, meaning getting the position and holding the position, you would have declined, not accepting the reality, not understanding, or maybe understanding the harsh reality, of the consequences. So with the difference in personality of those two leaders, one most definitely, well, I shouldn't say one, but at the same time, let me say, both of them had the qualification, the leadership ability to lead. But for whatever reason, people are people, and I think it's been said that the Kittitians will not accept
a Nevis man as Prime Minister.
a Nevis man
You see how difficult it is for
as a Prime Minister. At the same time, it was never tested. But it was assumed that based on what was in the ear, as people would have pontificated or stated, that Kittitians would not accept, and as a consequence.
No, you seem to have lost me there, because you started out by giving your evaluation and your conclusion.
Quite so.
Right. And you ended up now to giving what other people say or think.
Listen,
I'm listening.
we are here and we have to understand the environment in which we operate.
But that's what I'm trying to understand, because
So-
the statement that you made, that's heavy. And by my cross-examination, you would realize that it has me puzzled. You would agree with that?
Well, just continue to stay tuned. Let me say this. The two men were qualified, absolutely, but decided not to take the position at Knock Sure here twice.
Why don't I do this? Why don't I take a break and come back?
Not sure.
This is Thought That Get Results. Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liebert. We're back after these.
When VON vibrates, the whole Caribbean must shake.
860 AM, the powerhouse.
Back on this episode of Thought That Get Results with Edric W. Stanley, Conrad Nye Liebert. Your phone calls on 1-869-469-1616 and or 1700. One of the things that is being talked about a lot at this eve of Independence 40 is whether or not St. Kitts Nevis should become a republic. And one of the things I find is interesting that every time I hear that discussion and the question is raised, do you think a lot of people know what it means to be a republic? The difference that it will be if you're a republic as opposed to now. And there don't seem to be a general feeling. I say general because, again, as was mentioned earlier, we don't have no studies, no research, no scientific data. But if you ask people at random what it means, you hardly, get a cohesive answer. So, in terms of these sort of big adjustments, should we not have better debate and discussion and, if you will, education so that people know exactly what it's about?
Quite so, Webbo, but I don't think the topic has been aired enough and people are not educated enough in terms of the differences between the two political positions as an independent country and as a republic. Personally, I have not learned enough to give a definitive answer. I have listened to one person who gave a position with reference to the cost, and it made sense. We have so many other things to spend money on, and as a result, we should not be attempting to change our political status from an independent country to a republic. But yet, I am guarded. I am listening to hear other views and to formulate my own opinion as to whether or not it would make a big difference or maybe a small difference. But we must make a comparison as to the benefits and as to the responsibility in terms of the global order. As a republic or as an independent country. So, until then, my ears are glued to the ground to hear the differences in the two approaches. Webbo.
I think, as you say, Webbo, I think the whole concept should be discussed more with the people ventilated with the people. This thing, there's a word called pride. There's a word called dignity also. And when I think about those two words, I can see where it is easy for people to just say yes, because we are now attempting to remove the stains and whatever exists of vestiges of colonialism. But in the midst of this, I also wonder and look at the importance of the royal family to the people of the United Kingdom. And the Queen and the royal family means an awful lot, means everything to the people of the United Kingdom. Even though they live such lives and get such exemption, whatever, they are the untouchables. But somehow the people of the UK will die for the Queen. And you see in the recent passing of Queen Elizabeth II, you see how people have poured out their love and emotions for the royal members of the royal family, and with her passing, the island, the country was under such such a cloud. The Queen as a symbol means a lot to the UK people. I'm wondering now if we transfer that symbol, that symbolic concept to our federation, where we would recognize somebody from St. Kitts Nevis as holding the position, say, of the Queen. Will we develop that pride, that dignity, that respect for? Will we get to the point of behaving just how the people of UK behaved in the past, when such individual might pass or whatever? But it makes me think along that line, because to me, whatever the people of the UK derive from that institution, or the royal family and the Queen and all that, can we derive that feelings from an individual who is from St. Kitts Nevis, a black individual? Some may say no, and the question will be why. It's about dignity and pride. It's about yielding whatever we have to yield and committing whatever we have to commit to an individual from the Federation. It would feel different, but whether or not you prefer to commit yourself to the royal family of England, Queen Elizabeth and their heirs or whatever, or you say that to the people, individual from St. Kitts Nevis. And psychologically, we will find it much easier to give it to England, because it's what we've been accustomed to and what we've been molded to do, and we will find it probably less rewarding or less satisfying or a bit awkward to give that to an individual from St. Kitts Nevis. And I think it's within those realms of importance, of recognition. This whole concept is quite unsettled on the minds, in the minds of many people. But of course, as Mr. Stanley said, there's a cost factor which I don't know much about, at this moment. But we are hoping that a move to republicanism can make us more loyal citizens. I am not sure if that would be achieved, but I think that would be one of the reasons why more loyal citizens, more loyal to what is ours, and I suppose what happened after that would happen. But I think it's a great transformation, and the loyalty that I am talking about doesn't come overnight. It over time, it will, the presence of the Queen representative, or we will have a Queen representative, that person in that high position would be recognized and elevated, I suppose, as time goes by, as he really settled into our minds, into our political and everyday life, and I suppose maybe he or she can attain that level that we once, what we once looked towards the Queen or the royal family of England for. But it's quite murky right now. But I think it's meant to bring betterment in terms of citizenship, in terms of loyalty to the state in which we live. I suppose there's a lot to be said as it relates to debates around that, or we can just say, okay, we don't want to have nothing to do with the Queen anymore, let's go Republic. And I think that is exactly what is going to happen anyway. The debates would be set aside. I think some people would make up their mind to do that, and maybe it takes a referendum. And well, given the historical aspect of our existence here as black people, I think it would be a successful referendum for us to become a republic.
Well, based on how we have honored the Queen and the stability which during the time of her 75 years of reign,
and her mother as well,
we have benefited from the stability of these countries as part of the Commonwealth of Nations. As we go forward, there is certain reverence and respect placed on the position as the Queen. I'm not sure if the King Charles, will able to get that kind of respect, simply because, one, his reign may not be as long as his mother's, and as a consequence, he may not be able to bring the kind of benefits and stability with regard to our nationhood, the Commonwealth of Nations. But at the same time, there is still a certain amount of respect that is there toward the Queen in that she has gone, and toward the King, simply because of the hierarchy and the expectations of the leadership that would be exerted on the English Parliament, and the role that he plays, the current King plays within that hierarchy. But there is a certain amount of reference, like I've said, and it was a period that we looked forward to in terms of Empire Day. And as a result, that transformation of respect will not be easily bestowed on one of us, simply because there is a psychological aspect to it, which we may not want to admit, but the Queen has garnered a tremendous amount of respect regarding all the trappings of her reign and office. You got the Royal College of Surgeons and the Royal aspect of Chartered Surveyors, and a lot of other facets of connectivity connection.
Good and bad.
So you asked the pointed question, how would we look at one of us? The Governor General is there and she is representing the King, King Charles. But at the same time, the level of affection is not yet realized or transferred to her as, in my view, the late Captain Seaton.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening, Mr. Herbert, and to everyone else.
Good evening.
Yeah, Mr. Herbert, I would like to just give me a few minutes to celebrate a little bit. It's about 25 years ago I made a statement when there was this secession call in Nevis. How could we move forward when we are not going anywhere? I'm listening to the comments this evening, and over the years, that thing still holds, because we're still complaining. It's been about 8, 9 elections, 5 local, 4 federal. Nevis still after 25 years, still struggling. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
I thank you.
But you know, the King's representative in St. Kitts, whenever become a republic, he would be for us to emulate that individual. He won't be emulated from a lot of different countries, as the King is or the Queen was, you know. So he would not be that ranking global figure. He will just be our ranking figure here, locally. You know, and I think time would bring him to a statute where, you know, him or her, I must say, to that level where, you know, utmost respect is given from citizens of St. Kitts Nevis. He would not be a global figure, of course, not, you know, but if you ask me, I think we must have a starting point, even, you know, with the Caribbean Courts of Justice, you know, being seen as our final court. If we don't see that court as our final court, then the court would not develop the jurisprudence and the wealth of knowledge that is necessary to carry out its duties as we would like it to. And so there must be a starting point somewhere if we are to be realistic in terms of regional development, concrete regional development, and trust for the institutions that is created around us. And I think, as it relates to the Caribbean Court of Justice, and even the concept of republicanism, I think I share the same view. You know, it may start off as if or maybe, and not sure if we should, but I think if we do, the symbol of that individual from our island would be emulated to a level where it's
good.
Should be good for us.
Good evening, thank you for holding.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, good evening to the panel. Just to add my piece, the people of St. Kitts Nevis need to be educated first about what it means for St. Kitts Nevis to go republic. What are the advantages? What are the benefits for the people of St. Kitts Nevis if they go republic? Is it just for a name for the politicians? You're going to risk a whole nation, a whole federation just for a name? And just let us really consider what it is to go republic. Then we can look at the other Caribbean islands who have already gone republic. What are they gaining? Are they more prosperous or what? So with divisions and petitions, we need to be really educated about going republic. I am, for one, I do not believe in it. And I'm sure if we are well educated, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis would say they're not interested. What is there for Nevisians and citizens to gain for going republic? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
I would begin to understand that if we remain an independent country, I think Britain is still somewhat, whether emotional or committed to the security aspect of our nation. And I believe if we go to a republic and there is some uprising, they would not feel that level of commitment to help us militarily to, in fact, bring about calmness, peace, and again security within our nation. But it's left to be seen as to the level of commitment, because we would make some kind of consultative arrangement for our understanding the involvement of our mother country based on history. So as we go forward, there must be a consultative effort, consultation regarding the way forward when it comes to the Republican form of government in St. Kitts and Nevis. Again, the Governor General would be our head of state, but for some reason, the late Tapley Seaton, because of the length of time he has been a public servant for St. Kitts and Nevis, he had gained a lot of respect with reference to the governance of St. Kitts and Nevis, the guidance of St. Kitts and Nevis, whether it is academic, legal, economic, as the case might be. But he had gained a tremendous amount of respect. Now, with Dame Marcella Liebert, she would be there for a while, and as time passes, we will appreciate her length of service. Although it just begun, as time passes, she would serve and, as a result, follow the dictates of the late Tapley Seaton as head of state for St. Kitts and Nevis.
Well, I suppose remaining, being a member of the Commonwealth, we are, I think we stand to gain. Especially now the Commonwealth is a lot more important, a lot more relevant to Britain being out of the EU. I think being a member of the Commonwealth, we can expect something. We can, I think, in terms of negotiations, in terms of at least you can present a case, and they ought to listen to you. And you can enter into a, trades arrangement or whatever. There are tangible benefits to be gained from being a part of the Commonwealth that we don't know about being a republic thus far. Dominica is a republic. They went independence and they adapt republicanism the very same day. I don't hear no problems going on down there at all thus far, but you have made a point. If things get out of hand, I suppose our colonial masters, them would have some sort of responsibility in cooling down things, but is that sufficient for us to remain playing within the scope or and the realms of our colonial master? Is a question, I suppose, that needs to be asked. Those who are, of course, a lot more educated on the rewards of republicanism, they should come forward. And of course, that also poses the question, are there much to be gained? That's why someone who knows more about it and the functionality of it, the reality of its operations, should really come forward and speak to the people and have, of course, debates and conversation about it throughout the islands. But I think it would not be bad to have such debates, and then the people can really make a serious determination as to where they want to go. But Sinkis and Nevis being Sinkis and Nevis as it is, and many more islands I think is going to follow suit, because somehow, and Webbo made reference to the fact that the people of these regions still have that African tie, again, because of their history, and now what we are seeing, there's a lot of countries in Africa who are turning away from their colonial masters and linking up with places like Russia. I guess the geopolitics are changing massively throughout the globe, and if we go republicanism, I suppose, and anything go very wrong, and where we need that external strength, I suppose that we would have an option, because we cannot probably look to our colonial masters then, but we probably can look elsewhere. But in Africa, we see that happening in a massive way. Somehow, something about this colonial master in France, they're running out the forces. France have to pull back their forces, and they're replacing their forces with Russians. And so there's a lot of things that can happen going forward. When you obviously concrete yourself within a political arrangement or a political system, I would hope that you are still leaving yourself some options. That's when something go bad, because we will run from England and we run to another country for that security if things go bad. Well, that don't make no sense for me at all. The best we stay with England, And so we got to be careful, because we are still a very, very, very little minute place in the world. We are the smallest country in the world. And can we really do it all for ourselves if things get out of hand? I suppose that should be a serious question on the table as it relates to the transformation from our colonial masters to republicanism.
Well, I would imagine that there is some connection regarding Britain granting us independence. But if we decide to go to a republican form of government, it means that we would have no real relationship with reparation, in my view, simply because England has given us our independence. We applied for and we received it, and now that we are going from an independent country to a republican form of government, it is very likely that England could say, well, I don't owe you anything, simply because you had attained maturity to the extent where you have gained independence as an independent country, And now you have made the decision on your own to become a republic, and therefore the issue of reparation could be legally challenged by the mother country that gave us our independence. There is still some legal connection from statehood to independence based on the mother country. But there is no legal attachment if we make a decision. I might be wrong, from being an independent country to a republican form of government, and therefore the check might be blank, might be a blank check, because there are loopholes. And if you decide to leave your mother's house, this is just a practical example, you have attained the age of 18, and your mother and father, whose house you've grown up in, and you decide to leave it voluntarily after the age of 18, it is likely that they could say, I have no responsibility to look at you, take care of you, you're on your own. So that might be an area to consider as to whether or not we will become a republican form of government. St. Kitts and Nevis.
So in your hypothetical or practical example, you said that if you leave voluntarily at 18, your mother or father can say, I have no legal responsibility to you because you have left voluntarily. Did I get you correctly?
That is correct.
Okay. What if you stay after 18? Can they say the same thing?
If you stay under the roof?
Yes.
No.
They cannot say the same thing?
No.
Okay. So you're 18 and you don't want to leave. They cannot say, you're 18, leave.
They can say you can leave, but the emotional part of it may not. I mean, if you leave based on the fact that they tell you to leave, you are gone. But at the same time, they're the ones who forced you out, not you are taking it upon your own volition to leave. There is a legal connection there.
So if
an emotional connection there, as the case might be.
So if they forced you out, then you can
still claim residence on the mom and pop roof.
Until when? Because you use
perpetually.
Okay. So you use 18, but once you don't leave voluntarily and they force you to leave, then they'll have to take care of you until that do us part.
Emotionally and financially,
and you did said or imply that's practical, or that's just talk that would get no result.
Listen, Webbo.
I'm listening.
I'm saying to you, there is a direct connection between voluntarily leaving and you are asked to leave simply because it would be a dictate from your parents telling you to leave. The time has come, you are of legal age, I can't tell you what to do. As a result, please leave my roof. But you can make a claim. It may not be legal, but emotional. It may not be legal, but practical. Webbo.
Around this time of independence, one of the phrases that you hear ever so often is nation building. How are we in terms of productivity of the nation?
We continue to produce, and based on our productivity or the level thereof, we would see the GDP of St. Kitts Nevis at a certain level. It doesn't remain constant. We would understand that the GDP of St. Kitts Nevis in 2023 is hypothetically 4%. In 2024, it is projected to be 6%. In 2022, 2021, 2020, it was below those numbers I just gave. But if we are productive and our GDP rises from the level of 2%, 3%, 4%, 5%, as the case might be, it means that we are growing. Nation building is at a level where we can feel the growth, see the growth, understand the growth, and quantify it in dollar terms. So, based on those numbers, nation building is predicated on the willingness of our citizens to go out, work hard in the name of nation building. Webbo.
Well, nation building is a little more than that too. Nation building is looking at our human resource and trying to, of course, improve that in a big way. Yes, I mean the measurement of the GDP is an indicator, but there are times when the investment is made in nation building and it takes a while for it to really impact nation building. Nation building also speaks to the consciousness of the people too. You know, the consciousness of the people, the nationalism of the people. I'm worried a lot about that as it relates to Nevis, because our national pride, our Nevisian pride. I say Nevisian, but I'm speaking. I hope one day it would be national pride, as has been troubled from the same political situation that we are dealing with this the federal arrangement that makes us suffer this way. Our nationalism, sometimes we ask Nevision about Nevis and they don't speak in glowing colors. They speak in a depressive manner. These are the things that really concern me here in Nevis, really. So I don't see much of an accumulation of what it takes to build a foundation of this nation building existing here in our little island called Nevis. I will ask the politicians them to really look at that in a very serious way, and to quantify and try and increase impact the GDP. We got to look at things locally. You're looking at things federally, which is okay, but we also got to look at things locally to see that over here in Nevis that our potential are increasing, are increasing, and Nevis and Nevisians are feeling good about that, and our pride has been impacted positively, and we speak in a glowing way about Nevis in real terms, you know, and that's what I'm longing for.
Well, the hashtag sustainability is predicated on all hands on deck regarding the building and sustaining of our nation with regard to, which is predicated on productivity. Many of us know how to produce, will continue to produce, and ultimately the GDP in terms of human productivity will eventually be part of those numbers.
That's the last word. This program repeats at 10 o'clock following the VON News Minute tomorrow morning. Join the Honorable Mark Brantley tomorrow evening at 8 o'clock for On the Mark. Thank you all again for joining us. This is your voice in the community, thought that get results. You all have a wonderful evening.
And opinions expressed on the preceding program were solely those